Welcome back to the WellBeing Check. I'm Stephanie Cunningham, spiritual life coach, Reiki master, and someone who has personally checked every box in the perfect life list and still ended up feeling like something was deeply wrong. Today we're getting to the root of it. Why does life feel so messed up sometimes? Even when we're doing everything quote unquote right. Why do so many of us hit a wall in our 20s? And then another wall in our 30s, and somehow another one in our 40s and 50s, it's not bad luck. It's not a personal failing. It is one specific pattern repeating itself in different costumes at every stage in your life. We're talking about outside in living, which we've talked about before, but we're going to talk about it in a little different way, and why almost none of us escape it, and why it is the actual root cause behind so much of the confusion, anxiety, and quiet desperation that brings people into my office. Let's get into it. Again, if you've been listening for a while, this may sound a little familiar, but here's what I want you to hold in your mind. Growing up, we think of adulthood like a paint by numbers kit. There's a perfect picture already drawn for us based on what we were told, what we saw modeled, what looked like success to the people around us. And then life breaks that picture into pieces. Good grades, the right college, high-paying job, a spouse, house, dog, kids. Check the boxes, color in the lines, the picture's complete. Perfect. And then here's the cruel joke. You can check every single box. You can color in every piece exactly the way you were told to. And the picture can be perfect. And you can still feel terrible, confused, lost, like you're drowning, even though from the outside in, it looks like you're winning. If you've ever felt that, fully checked the list and still felt hollow, I need you to hear me. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. Something else is actually going on, and we can name it. The struggle happens when you design a life from the outside rather than from the inside. When you build based on what you think you should do, should be, should want, instead of what you actually feel deep down that you want. So instead of being honest with yourself about your real desires, you toe the line. You do what's expected, even when it makes you miserable. And sometimes it's worse than that. Sometimes you don't even know what you actually want. You just know somewhere in your gut that this isn't it. And here's what makes it so much worse. We assign expectations and timelines to things we don't even know we want in the first place. Married by 28, promotion by 30, second kid by 33. We build entire deadlines around a picture we never actually chose for ourselves. And then when life doesn't hit those marks, or worse, when it does and we still feel empty, we call ourselves failures. That is a guaranteed recipe to feel like you're failing. Not because you are failing, because the whole plan was built on a foundation that was never really yours. And I want to say this, unless you were a wildly self-aware teenager, and almost nobody is, this struggle was basically unavoidable. The messages you absorbed about what your life should look like weren't necessarily wrong. They just might have been wrong for you specifically. And you had to start somewhere. Nobody really hands you a personalized blueprint at 18. You build the only way you know how, by following the map everyone else seems to be using. The most difficult phase of life is not when no one understands you. It's when you don't understand yourself. And you may have heard me say that before. When you don't understand yourself, you don't know what actually lights you up and gives you a surge of energy. You don't know what your belief system even is versus what you absorb from everyone else around you. You don't know how you like to work, what tasks genuinely satisfy you, how you actually want to be loved, or what your specific triggers are. Without that information, you make decision after decision in the dark. And when things go sideways, when the marriage feels hollow, when the career feels wrong, when the life looks great on paper and feels like nothing, we cope in some pretty predictable, pretty unhelpful ways. We feel depressed or anxious without being able to name why. We overmanage everything, gripping tighter and tighter just to keep the structure from collapsing. We repress our emotions and lie to others and ourselves about how okay we actually are. We party too much, numb too much, scroll too much, just to make the discomfort go quiet for a few hours. And some of us cheat, lie, self-destruct in ways that genuinely surprise the people who know us. And a lot of us give our power away entirely, hoping someone, a partner, a doctor, a guru, anyone, will just fix it for us. None of that is a character flaw. It's exactly what happens to a person who's been living from the outside in for years, sometimes decades, without ever being taught another way. I want to drive this part home because I think we love to pin this whole conversation on your 20s are hard and leave it there. They are hard, but this pattern does not expire on your 30th birthday. Your 30s, 40s, and 50s are hard too, just in a different costume. By now, most of us have calmed down some. We were emotional messes in our 20s, raging hormones, passionate outbursts, stubborn certainty about things we knew nothing about, actually. We all were, whether we want to admit it or not. As we age, we get over things faster. We get better at sorting out what's actually worth our energy. And that happens naturally with experience and self-awareness and, let's be honest, sometimes a little help from Prozac. But here's the twist. By the time we reach our 30s and 40s, we usually have a much clearer idea of who we are and what we actually want. The direction problem doesn't go away. It just changes shape. Now the question isn't, what do I want to do? It's, how do I get here from here after I've already built a life that is so far removed from where I actually want to be? That's terrifying. You don't want to unravel everything you've built. You don't want to disappoint your family. You don't want to lose your spouse. You don't want to try and fail publicly in front of everyone who's watched you build this life in the first place. So we grab our suitcases of baggage and book a one-way flight straight to Suppressionville, with a connecting layover, of course, in Shame Valley. We tell ourselves stories about why we can't change now. We carry the guilt of choices made years ago like they're permanent sentences instead of decisions that can still be revised. I want you to drop those bags right now. Get up, walk out of that terminal. You almost boarded a flight that goes nowhere good, okay? And now the first order of business, release the bullshit story you're carrying around about your life and the decisions you've made. It doesn't matter whether you're the one telling yourself the story or someone else keeps feeding you the lines. Maybe you drank too much. Maybe you hooked up with more people than you care to admit. Maybe you burned bridges at work or wrecked relationships with family or friends. You're not the only one who's done that. Not even close. Social media just does an incredible job of hiding the messy, behind-the-scenes version of everyone else's life while you're left comparing your real one to their highlight reel. So stop holding yourself to a standard nobody's actually living up to. Here's the good news buried in all of this. The missteps that made you feel like a failure were never actually failures. They were clues. They helped you learn who you are and how you work, information you couldn't have gotten any other way. Life isn't a perfectly drawn paint-by-numbers portrait. It's a messy finger painting. It may not look impressive to anyone scrolling past, but it's yours. You get it, and that is worth infinitely more than a picture someone else drew for you that never actually fit. Here's what's great, genuinely great, about these later decades. We not only know there's more to life, we believe there's more, and we feel more confident about actually making changes. If we chose a career path that doesn't fit, we know and believe we can choose again. That confidence is new. It wasn't available to us at 22. We started understanding what it actually means to live the life we want, not the one we were handed. We realized that if we don't pursue our own goals, no one suffers for that except for us. And we finally start to understand, even if we're not great at practicing it yet, that taking care of ourselves is actually how we take care of everyone else too. But the fear stays remarkably consistent across every decade. The fear of disappointing people, the fear of unraveling something that you've spent years building, the fear of admitting out loud that the life you have isn't the life you want. So hear this. You do not have to unravel your entire life to fix this. You have to trust that as you take positive, thoughtful, deliberate action, even small action, the right life will unfold around you. Odds are the people who genuinely love you will still be there on the other side. Sometimes those relationships get even stronger and deeper because for the first time, they get to know the real you instead of the performed version. Now, this might sting a little bit, but I say it with love. It might take working with a coach, a therapist, a mentor, someone who can help you navigate the waters of self-awareness and change. But no one can fix this for you. This is something only you can do. Don't buy the story that it's someone else's fault you're not living the life that you want. It's simply not true. You are the only one who can decide to change your life. You might have people you want to talk it through with, and you should, but the decision is still yours. Decide to move forward or don't. Either way, own the fact that it's on you, not your spouse, not your parents, not your job, not your circumstances, you. I know that's a hard pill. I do. I also think it's the most liberating one in this whole episode, because if it's on you, that means it's also fully within your power. Nobody else gets to hold the keys. You do. I lived this. For years, I knew something was off in my career and my marriage, and for a long time, I told myself a story about why I couldn't change it yet. Not enough money, not the right time. What would people think? Every one of those was technically true and completely beside the point. The real reason was fear dressed up as practicality. The day I stopped blaming the circumstances and started owning the decision was the day things actually started to move. Not because the circumstances got easier, because I stopped waiting for permission that I was never going to get from anywhere outside of myself. So here's the bottom line. Every stage of life has its ups and downs. Your 20s are hard because you're trying to figure out who you are while the world hands you a list and calls it a finish line. Your 30s, 40s, and 50s are hard because now you know more, but unwinding what you've already built feels impossibly risky. The more you understand and accept yourself, the more honest you become about what you actually want instead of what you were told to want, the more peaceful your time on this planet becomes. The more you understand and accept yourself, the more peaceful your time on this planet becomes. That doesn't mean easy. It just means worth it. Genuinely, deeply worth it. In the next episode, we're going to talk about exactly how to start building from the inside out a real practical framework for creating a life that actually feels satisfying instead of just looking good. Because naming the problem is step one. Solving it is what comes next. Until next time, be well.